Muted.
Now, and we'll go right into the presentation. So, hopefully, there we go. So we've put together, Stephanie, Carmen, and I met yesterday morning, and we put together a list of all of the defined as internal conditions. So an internal condition generally are things that are required in a loan file to get the transaction to a clear to close or a clear to doc status that are not directly related to the consumer or an outside third party. So, for example, a condition for pay stubs or bank statements, that's going to be a consumer-related condition. The appraisal itself is for the appraiser. The title work would be the title company, etc. So these are things that we do internally, similar to a checklist that need to be done to make sure that file is saleable and complies with that particular loan product requirements. So we've put together a list of what all those conditions are, who is responsible for ordering them or creating the item, who is responsible to clear the item, and also what loans they apply to. So we've got a pretty complete list here of all those items. And this document will get sent out to everybody globally, all 333 of us, or however the count is here later this afternoon. So the first item would be 4506 transcripts or tax return transcripts, whether it's the tax return, the W-2, the 1099, whatever the applicable item is, right, in that file. So who is responsible to order the item would be the processor in this case. Who is responsible to clear that condition is the underwriter. And tax return transcripts would be required on every transaction type that we have those items on. Obviously, if there are no tax returns or W-2s for the borrower, there are no tax transcripts to get unless we're looking for evidence of non-filing and all that kind of good stuff. So the appraisal logging is tagged as an internal condition. The underwriter orders that or starts that process. The underwriter clears it, and it would apply only for an FHA transaction. CAVERS clearance, processor would order the CAVERS number, load that print screen into Byte. The underwriter would clear that condition, and that is going to happen on any government insured or guaranteed loan, so FHA, VA, USDA. The case number order, processor orders it, underwriter clears it, FHA and VA transactions. Notice how the dots in front of the program type or transaction type are shaded for the ones that apply. The run or submission of the transaction through collateral underwriter, which is a Fannie Mae proprietary item, is going to be completed and signed off on by the underwriter, and that would only apply to transactions that are being scheduled or underwritten toward the Fannie Mae guideline as opposed to Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac does not have a collateral underwriter piece. The EAD certificate or the equivalent of the SSR for FHA transactions, the appraisal desk will be the one who orders or creates that document, and the underwriter, I need to correct this document, the underwriter will sign off on that, and that would apply only for FHA transactions. Fannie Mae Early Check, also it's a Fannie Mae proprietary program, created and signed off on by the underwriter, only applies to Fannie Mae transactions. Flood cert, processor creates it or orders it, underwriter clears it, and that would apply to every transaction. And we'll talk a little bit more about flood certs and what the different flood zones are and what else could happen in a flood transaction. The fraud guard, processor orders the fraud guard initially. If there are updates that need to be done to the fraud guard or fraud prevention report during the transaction, for example, if it was first run without all of the party information entered into the transaction, so no seller information, real estate agent, title company, appraiser, exists, that, and the other thing. Or if it needs updated, the processor will be the one to update the fraud guard. The underwriter will clear or sign off on the fraud guard condition, and that would apply to all transactions. The gift certification or gift cert on that file, the underwriting assistant will complete that, and the underwriting assistant will clear that condition, and that would apply to any transaction where there would be a gift. The Freddie Mac Loan Quality Advisor, which is similar to Fannie's Early Check and Collateral Underwriter Freddie's combines it into one software item. The underwriter will order or process that. The underwriter will clear it, and that would only apply, obviously, to a Freddie Mac transaction. The NOV, or Notice of Value, which is a VA appraisal response that was sent to the consumer, that's going to fall solely onto the underwriter's desk and will be responsible or required only on a VA guaranteed transaction. The soft pull credit report, note the asterisk here. The processor will need to be the one who orders that. The underwriter will clear the condition, and that will only happen on agency, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac files, or any file being delivered or underwritten with a housing finance agency or down payment assistance program attached to it, regardless of loan type. So whether it's the CalHFA, the ZIP, the OFA, the Nevada HAL or HIP, any of the Texas files or the Arizona ones, anything along those lines, if it is a down payment assistance or state housing finance agency product, there is a requirement for a soft pull credit report regardless of the loan type, hence the asterisk there. The SSR certificate or submission to the UCDP, or the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, that will be submitted and processed by the appraisal desk. The underwriter will sign off on the SSR, and that would only apply to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac transactions. The verbal VOE, or the re-verification of employment within 10 days of the note date. So if that first written VOE, let's say the VOE is written, if the docs are going to go out and the note's going to be dated within 10 days of that, we do not have to do it a second time. If there is a lag more than 10 days in there, that will have to be done again. That will hold up the clear to doc on that file. That does have to be done within a 10-day window. There are no ifs, ands, or buts on that. So the underwriting assistant will complete that particular item, order it, and clear it. So and that, again, would also apply to all transactions. I've also got a list of what all of those internal conditions on this check sheet, this listing here of what the condition looks like in Byte. So they will all have the prefix at the front of internal. They'll all be coded in there as internal, which means they will not show up on the approval letter that would be generated by the underwriter and submitted out. So you would have to look at the condition screen, which we'll walk through that mechanics of that in Byte here in a moment. So this is how they will all read. So I do also want to come back to the flood zone question. If the property is in the flood zone, C is in Charlie, X is in X-ray, or Z is in Zulu, those are not properties that would require flood insurance. Property is not in a FEMA-defined flood danger or hazard area. If the flood zone is anything other than Charlie, X-ray, or Zulu, there could be flood insurance required on that transaction, and a laundry list of other requirements have to happen. There are additional disclosures that have to go out. There's going to be a COC required for the flood insurance, and a laundry list of other things that have to happen, and there are clocks on those where those items have to happen 10 days prior to note. So if you are not in a flood zone C, X, or Z, it is imperative, if you are in something other than C, X, or Z, that you address that with the underwriter in a very expeditious and quick manner, because there are a laundry list of other things that will have to happen in that transaction. So this document will also get sent out with this list as well as a point of reference to everybody. So once you look at the conditions in the file, and I've got a sample test file up here, when the underwriter underwrites that file and adds the applicable internal condition items that are on here. So as you receive those items, they are all separate. Instead of having one giant clumped together condition to then have to read the comment and see where the done is or where the done is not or anything along those lines, they are all separate, so you know if they are there, if they have been received, if they've been submitted and cleared. A little bit easier to take a look at that. So also the responsibility column will match up to the responsibility requirement here of who is required to create or provide that information on the responsibility summary sheet as well. So that will match up onto the transaction. So this particular sample file for Hingle McCringleberry is an FHA purchase, so the only internal conditions that are on here are the ones that could apply to an FHA transaction. So for example, the item for the SSR or the UCDP submission, that would only be a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac transaction. This particular file for Hangle-McCringleberry is an FHA transaction, so there are no UCDP conditions or SSR conditions on that particular file. So, for example, once we'll use the tax transcripts as the scenario item here. So, once those items have been received, they're going to get uploaded in here just like any other condition into the file. So that can be done in a wide variety of different ways. Option number one would be to click open up the condition, add the documents, import that document, and load it right into the transaction. So we're going to just upload that condition sheet in here as a sample, right? And add any notes, call it what it is. So if that was tax return transcripts, because that's not a system document, there's no barcode to it, so we'd have to scroll on down to the income category. I'll widen this up a little bit. Go to the income category. If we're calling these tax transcripts, we'll go down here to tax return transcript, select all of our pages, tag it to what it is, store those documents, and in a moment, once that is done, then our documents are now into that file. It would also be important to mark those items as received so that everybody involved in the transaction, everyone from the loan officer to the processor to the underwriter to the doctor to everybody in the transaction, knows what the status is. So when the underwriter adds that condition onto the transaction, they're going to mark that in as requested. Once the processor or whomever it is has received it, they would mark it as received. Once that item is going to get pushed, this would apply to any condition as a side note, would be pushed to the underwriter for resubmission along with everything else they need. They would then mark the submission item, and when the underwriter clears it, or whomever the appropriate party is, they would go ahead and mark that item as cleared as well. That way we can track what's been done on that particular transaction. So in a nutshell, that is all that needs to be done for internal conditions. There seemed to be a lot more confusion on this with the workflow changes than was expected, so I will apologize for that. Hopefully this call and this document here that's back on the screen will eliminate that frustration as far as who needs to do what on the transaction. So as a really quick summary, the processor does not have to clear any of those conditions. The underwriter will be the one who makes the decision to clear that condition. The processor would just have to order those particular items. So that being said, I'm going to buzz through the questions in the chat box. We'll cover all of those items, and if there are none, then this can be a very, very quick call, and you all get 46 minutes of bonus time back in your day. So let's take a look here. Can I make you the presenter? No. What about PMI? PMI itself is not defined as an internal condition, right? Similar to PMI or HFA submission or anything along those lines. That's not an internal condition, but that did change with the workflow procedure, right? So PMI submission is the responsibility of the processor to submit that file for MI in the event there is MI on the file. Also submit to the HFA or to USDA, whatever the appropriate scenario is. It will still be the underwriter's job to clear the MI cert on the condition to make sure that it was done properly, there's the proper coverage, it matches up with the DU and all that other kind of good stuff. So if we need to do another call for that, we can certainly do that. There has already been I will pull it up here, and if need be, I can send it back out again. There was a Radian submission procedural checklist that Stephanie had put together that was sent out as well that walks anyone through exactly what they need to do to submit that file for MI, including what the website is, how to get your username, password, etc., what shows up, exactly what to do step by step by step with screenshots. So we can certainly send this out again if necessary. So that is the only remaining question in the chat box. So if there are no others, then like I said, you all get 44 minutes of bonus time back in your day. So once again, if you have follow-up questions, go ahead and email those off to Byte support@bancorp.com so we can get that question answered. There was a question in here, I take that back, about flood logins. Yes, we can do that. I'll get with Jordan and have him get logins and passwords to the flood cert vendor and get those off to all the processors, assuming you don't already have one. I'll have him work on that here hopefully later today, assuming the major internet issue that's been plaguing everybody is resolved. If not, then that's going to be his first priority. So, Carmen, hopefully that answers your question. And if not, have a good afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll talk to you all at some point in the future. Thank you very much.